Hello, everybody. We're so happy you're here. I'm Jeannie Walters. It's another Friday, which means this is an Ask Me Anything webinar with experienced investigators. We're today talking about ways that you can be proactive as a customer experience leader, even if customer experience isn't necessarily in your title. This is about really addressing those pain points that your customers have so that we can make them happier and get better business results. Now, as always, with me today, I have Sean from our team. Sean, how are you?
I'm great, Jeannie. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. You're in a different environment today.
I am. I'm a world traveler, and then and I moved. And I'll be honest, I could have learned some being more proactive and kind of preventing pain points through that process. If you could give a kind of a speech on that regarding moving versus CX, I think it could help quite a bit.
That would help you. So now,
It
who
would.
were you the customer of, though? Because didn't you move on your own? So were you your own customer?
I was yes, all the pain points were my own fault. Yes, I took on both the selling of my house by myself and the moving of my house by myself because I figured I could figure it out, and
Yeah.
I
How
did.
Oh, good.
It did.
Good.
I did. And I'm excited about today's topic, as far as like being proactive. It's interesting, Jeannie, because we don't talk about it enough. You 13 years and 51 weeks ago, you started a company. You were a founder of a company, and that company. Two of the five core values have proactive in the value.
That's
Both.
true.
It is. So both be curious and learn proactively, and solving problems proactively are part of what the company's founded on in our core values, and it ties right into kind of the comments and discussion today.
Wow. Well done. I like that you brought out our core values. That's really cool. Yeah, we talk about them a lot here. And yeah, you're right. Proactivity is definitely part of two of the five, and it's a big thing. And I think it's something that we, as CX leaders, are often told we can't be. And so I hope today we can give folks some ideas and tools to really be proactive in their roles. I see we have some folks joining us, which is great.
Yeah, awesome. So as people join, please tell us where you're coming from,
Mhm.
where you're joining us from. Um, and
Yeah.
then throughout the process, please add your questions in the comment sections on LinkedIn. And
Yes. Yes, please do. And we'll get to those after we run through a little bit of content here, but we don't have to just keep the questions to this topic. If you have
yeah,
customer experience questions, please go ahead and drop those in as well. So I think we should probably get started. What do you think?
I think I should go away and let you do your thing.
Well, we'll see you in a bit, Sean. Thank
All
you.
righty.
All right. So today we are talking about 5 ways to be proactive to prevent customer experience pain points. These are just 5 ways, but I really believe there are several that hopefully you will be able to look at your journey, your customer's journey, and make some proactive changes as well. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeannie Walters. As Sean mentioned, I founded Experience Investigators almost 14 years ago. On July 27th, we will be celebrating our 14th anniversary of being a business, which is pretty exciting. So, our focus is about creating fewer ruined days for customers. That's been our mission since day one. And by you being here today, we are trying to empower leaders like you to do exactly that. So, you being here with us today helps us live that mission. So, thank you so much. If you are looking for more content on customer experience, employee experience, all that jazz, we have a lot for you. If you check out our site at experienceinvestigators.com, go to our learning center, you can find all sorts of resources, articles, videos, audio, podcasts, you name it. It's there for you, and you can search for that. And then, of course, we have several courses at LinkedIn Learning. And we just found out recently that we have broken the 500,000 learner mark, meaning that 500,000 learners have gone through those courses with us, which is pretty awesome to think about. And we're creating even more. So stay tuned there as well. So let's jump in. Before we do, I want to give a slight reminder here. Today is the last day. Today, July 21st, is the last day to apply for our new program, CXI Flight School. This is for leaders like you who are looking for a little more guidance around getting those resources and documentation and foundational pieces to really evolve your customer experience program to the next level. Now, for the first 3 months, we call that ground school, and we will be literally walking with you through the process so that you can develop your own customer experience mission statement, success statement, and charter. Those tools are foundational tools that you can build everything else on. And honestly, it makes your job easier once we get those settled. It's also a place where you can have live Q&A with me on a more regular basis. We have a great team. We have Jillian on our team, who is the flight director, who is there for the members. So if you are interested at all, please go ahead, scan this QR code, go to cxiflightschool.com. You will see what we're offering, and hopefully fill out an application, because we would love to see you there. We're launching very soon. So let's talk about our topic here. Why do proactive customer experiences win? This is something that I think we don't talk about enough. And often what happens, and what I see happen with our clients, those CX leaders that we work with, they are put into a position as a leader to just be reactive. They aren't given a lot of tools. They aren't given a lot of resources. They aren't given a lot of guidance. They're told things like, well, fix customer experience or get to know the customer. We want to be customer centric. And all of those things sound fantastic. But often what that means in the real world is that the leaders don't necessarily have the right resources, the right team, all of those things. What they have instead are feedback mechanisms. So they hear about things, but they're not necessarily in the right position to make those changes. So they're constantly reacting, not just to what customers are telling them, but also what are the priorities of their leaders. They have to respond to that as well. And so if we are set up in this way to be reactive, we're never going to get ahead. We're never going to actually deliver on the returns that we want for the investment that's made. And frankly, that's what's getting a lot of CX leaders and teams in trouble. So today, I want to give you 5 ways to be proactive about those pain points that you know about. And I'll give you some examples, but I encourage you right now to think about your organization, think about those pain points that you know about, and see what you can apply to that as we move through. We also sometimes don't talk about how do we prevent things from happening in the future. And that's another good question to ask yourself in order to be proactive. So these are the 5 things we're going to be talking about: creating workarounds for broken processes, say sorry and mean it, pay attention to feedback and address the issue, and then reassure the customer wherever necessary. Now, of course, we also want to tap into the wisdom of those frontline employees that we have. So this first one, it sounds so simple, but what tends to happen is we will know about something that's just not working. And we sometimes use excuses. And these are the 2 that I hear the most. It's always been done that way, or this is just how everybody in our industry does it. And those are lame excuses, everybody. We cannot get away with that. If we think like that, we're never going to get ahead of the competition. And this is where I want to remind you that if you are not the disruptor, you will be disrupted through better experiences. Think about all the disruption of the last decade plus. They've all been experience based. It's not about new products. Airbnb doesn't have a new product. They just packaged it differently and made the customer experience better. Same thing with Uber, with Netflix, you name it. Those are all experience based. Even going as far back as what Amazon did to retail, that was about experience, not necessarily about different products. So as you think about your broken promises or broken processes, think about what is really not working for customers. Now, in Chicago, where I live, there is a restaurant, and now they're sprinkled throughout the country. So you may have heard of them, called Portillo's. It's a basic kind of old school fast food joint, but they make a lot of their things fresh. It's better quality, etc. And they're known for things like their chocolate cake shake, which is as intense as it sounds. So when you are going to a Portillo's, it is not unusual to see a crazy line outside the drive-through. But here's the thing. People see that line and they know not to get intimidated by it, because you don't make it all the way up to the window before you give your order. What they do is they send out employees with handheld devices, with identifiers for your car, and they basically send the order to the kitchen as soon as they get it. You pay there, they put something on your car, and then as orders come out, they find you, give you the order, and you're able to drive away. It moves very, very quickly. And because everybody knows that, they actually are not intimidated as a customer when we see these crazy lines at Portillo's. Now, think about this. There are many situations where a drive-through is landlocked with actual real estate and what can happen. That's true for Portillo's as well. So they have all these restrictions about what can happen, and they thought proactively about what can really, what can we do to improve this? What's a workaround? And this happens in Chicago, folks, when sometimes people do this in January when it's negative below, their workers are still out there making this happen. And it's really a way to show customers, like, hey, we got you. We understand you're not here for a sit down dinner. We're going to get you out of here quickly. So instead of just throwing up our hands and thinking, well, the drive through is the drive through, we need to think about what are those workarounds. Now, one great way to do this is to ask your employees, the employees who are serving your customers in those moments. Make sure you include them in the workarounds to really hear their ideas, and also they really understand the process and they really understand the frustration of your customers. So include them as you're thinking about this. But I bet that right now you can think of something that's not working. And the reason I'm so confident saying that is because anytime I lead exercises in customer journey mapping or things like that with different clients, I always ask this question: what's not working for your customers? And it's amazing how many times, almost universally, they come up with something that everybody in the room knows about, but nobody knows exactly how to fix it. So it's just been shoved off, shoved off, shoved off. We have to get better at this. This is a way to lead as a customer experience leader. So here's another proactive thing: say sorry first and mean it. Now, one of the things that happens in reactive customer experiences is we kind of wait for something to go wrong and then we wait for them to complain, right? We don't necessarily want to flag them down and say, hey, we messed up. So we just wait and see what happens. Well, if we are reactive like that, if we're passive about it, then those customers who don't complain, who don't tell us, guess what? They're just leaving. They're not only just leaving, they're telling everybody who will listen about their terrible experience. They're feeling unheard and unrecognized. So when we talk about saying sorry, I mean being proactive. If something goes wrong, you reach out and say, we're sorry this happened. Here's what we're doing about it. I wrote about this in the article that this is based on, where I was on a Southwest flight several years ago. They offered Wi-Fi, we paid for it, and then it dropped right away. Nobody could get back on. I just kind of put my laptop away and didn't think about it because you know what? It happens, right? They proactively sent me an email refunding the Wi-Fi fee and giving me a coupon for next time. That is what I'm talking about. Now, I'm telling you that story because it stuck with me. So if you can see ways that you can, when things go wrong, and you know what? Things are going to go wrong. It just happens. Then be proactive about sharing that apology and saying, this is what we're doing about it. Thanks for being a customer. It's amazing how far those little things can go, because then somebody is feeling heard, recognized, and they're feeling kind of treated fairly. They know that, okay, you refunded me because it didn't work. So be proactive. Now, this one, it seems again very obvious, but pay attention to feedback and address the issue. We want to make sure that if something is happening, we want to address that issue and then circle back and be really proactive with our customers. So in some cases, one of the things that I always look for are kind of clues, because as much as we love feedback, customers don't have a lot of time to give it to us. They're only going to give it to us if we hit them in that right moment, if we happen to reach them, and they're in a mood to let us know one way or the other. There is so much feedback that is uncollected, and we have to remember that. So some of the clues might be, you know what, if people are getting to your digital shopping cart and then they're abandoning, what's happening there? What is that feedback actually telling us? What about what they're sharing when they call customer service? We often will have things in the ratings of those different calls. So we'll have things like customer service agents might have coding around things like there was a delivery issue, or there was this, or there was this. But if we're not paying attention to what customers are really telling us and going back and actually addressing the issue, then we're just getting feedback. We're not changing anything. And if we're not connecting with those frontline agents and saying, what are you really hearing? Sometimes they say, oh yeah, there's a code that I'm using, but it doesn't really align. Now, one of the things that I've witnessed happen is we had all sorts of calls come in with people who had downloaded an app and couldn't figure out how to actually log in. So they were calling, and what they realized, what the agents started realizing was, you know what? It's the app icon. It's different than the branded icon. So they weren't recognizing the app. It wasn't that they were actually having trouble logging in. It was that we had kind of switched the rules on the customer because the visual identity was wrong. And so once they discovered that, they were able to go back and fix it. But it took months. And the reason it took months is because they weren't really paying attention to that feedback. They were saying, oh, look at all these poor customers who don't know how to log in. And they were kind of treating it like it was the customer's problem. Once you identify something like that, you can take a step back, figure out a better way to address the earlier part of the journey, and be proactive about getting your customers where they want to go, helping them achieve that goal, and getting them through the process in a really proactive way. We also want to reassure the customer whenever necessary and wherever necessary. Have you ever been on one of those websites where you have to submit a payment or a registration or something, and you hit that button and nothing happens? And so you go, oh, gee, I'm going to hit that button again and again and again and again, because we as people, as humans, need reassurance that whatever we're trying to do actually worked. And so if we're not looking throughout our journey for how to proactively provide reassurance, we're missing an opportunity to build trust with our customers. Now, think about how when you order a rideshare service, an Uber or Lyft or something like that, why do they show us where the car is when we're waiting? When we're waiting for our car, we're looking at that map, right? Oh, are they coming this way? Are they going to turn the wrong way? It gives us a sense of reassurance that they're on the way. This is becoming so common that now B2B delivery programs are actually getting requests for this because we want that reassurance to know you're on the way. Same thing with payment, same thing with anything submitted. We want to make sure that we're giving them reassurance. Another very low tech way to think about this, if there is a span of time where one of your customers is calling in again and again, did you get my order? When will it be delivered? What's my account balance? All of those questions mean that they can't find a way proactively to get that information. If we can provide those proactive reassurances for them, that will help them actually solve their problem, feel more confident in the relationship, and it saves your agents and your customer service reps from being there to answer all those questions. Banking figured this out a few years ago. People would call in all the time, let me know my account balance. So now there's a lot of options when we look for, you can use an app to look at your balance. You can sometimes call in with voice. So there are all sorts of different options now all around that reassurance. So think about, where can you actually proactively reassure somebody within your journey? And honestly, I think this is one of the biggest areas that customer experience neglects overall. We don't think this way. We think that somebody's going through a linear process. We have to think about, where can we reassure them and build that confidence throughout. And then finally, you've already heard me say this a few times, we need to tap into the wisdom of our frontline employees. I can't tell you how frustrating it is when somebody says, we've done all this customer experience work, and yet it's not really changing at that retail level or at that frontline level. And you start asking, okay, what did you do? How did you work on this? And they say, oh, we did all these internal sessions. We interviewed our leaders. We looked at the feedback from the surveys, and they never included those frontline employees. The more that we can include them, they have amazing wisdom and amazing ideas for you, but we have to get that from them. We have to make it a safe space for them to tell us that. We have to look after their well-being, all sorts of things. But we also just want to tap into, what are you seeing? What are you hearing from customers? How can we make this process better? And the more that we can tap into that, what happens is you find win-wins. You find wins for the customer and you find wins for the employee. And what that means is you will have higher loyalty on both sides, and more efficient processes because your employees don't want to have bad processes, but they do. Now, I went into a retail store to make a pretty big return on something, and I could not believe what this employee had to go through to make that return. And I even asked him, I said, "Is it always like this?" And he said, "Yes, we've told them so many times that this doesn't work and they don't care." Now, think about that. He was telling me this brand did not care about him. That translates directly to me as a customer. And that's because they did not care about how the process worked in the real world. What they cared about was their process map and trying to make that work instead of actually tapping into their frontline employees and saying, "How can we make this work better for you? How can we make this more seamless and pleasant and efficient for you as the employee?" So let's make sure that we have a way to collect their feedback on a regular basis, reward those ideas, be proactive about that and saying, "Hey, Johnny from store 37 had a fabulous idea and we're going to pilot it this week and we're really excited about it." Let's make sure they feel like they are part of the customer journey in a way that is proactive as well. There is a lot here that we can do. And I think, again, this is neglected in so many ways in customer experience leadership. So these are the 5 ways. Create those workarounds, say sorry first and mean it, reassure, pay attention to feedback, sorry, and address the issue. So go back in the journey, make sure you're doing that root cause analysis and addressing it, and reassure the customer wherever necessary, whenever necessary, as proactively as you can. Tap into the wisdom of those frontline employees. And at the end of the day, this is really a state of mind. If we are being asked to be reactive, and if we kind of sit back and passively do that, then what happens is people will just think that's what the role is. They'll think that's what customer experience management and leadership is. But I know that people who show up for something like this, you care deeply about this work and you care about making sure that we're delivering for our customers in the best possible way. So you already have this mindset. I can bet, I can guarantee almost. So what we need to do is make sure we're communicating and showing the results of being proactive and not just kind of passively doing what they think is best in a reactive way. So the best organizations are not satisfied with that typical reactive customer experience. They look for ways to get ahead, to be proactive. And this will get you ahead of your competition. This will help you be more future focused and innovate. There are so many benefits once we start thinking about this. So I would love to hear how you're being proactive, what questions you have, everything else. Before we get there, I just want to mention that we have our CX Compass available now. It's a free resource for you to kind of assess where to invest in the customer framework. So we have our framework of CXI Navigator. There are 4 areas of focus. We believe that this might help you find what's next for you. So feel free to check that out and let us know what you think. We are a work in progress as well. We're always looking for that feedback. Let us know if there are ways that that can be more valuable to you. And then, of course, we've got Flight School coming up. And today is a big day for Flight School. It is the last day for applications. If you are interested at all, I encourage you to apply there because we are building an amazing group. And I'm very excited about what's next there. So,
Yeah.
Sean, you're back. We've got things to talk about.
Well, I was thinking about flight school a little bit, and I know we mentioned the company Experience Investigators that runs workshops, has the consulting side, has the coaching program that are larger, intense programs for bigger companies to take on,
Mhm.
give or take. I think one benefit of flight school is it kind of right sizes exposure and time with you to help support individual programs as they grow them.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's one of the characteristics that I really like flight school, and I think it's a right sized solution in that area.
That's a great way to say it. Yeah, we really think about it as we've got all those resources that we give away that are available for leaders who just want to dive in and do the work. And we've got those available. We've got our consulting and our coaching and our workshops that are a little bigger. And then there's my calendar. Just and then we've got this area in the middle, and this is really for that group who wants that guidance, who wants to like get to work, but needs a little more support. And that's what we're trying to do with Flight School. So we're really excited about it.
That's
So
awesome.
I agree. Yes. So it looks like we have a great crowd from all over today. That's so cool.
Jeannie, we've got Nadia from South Africa. We've got Nasir from Dubai, Amanda from Orlando, Craig from Indiana,
Love it.
Audrey from Michigan, Paige from Kansas City. We're worldwide today.
I love it. Thank you all for making time for this and for joining us. We love our global community. We love how you show up for these things. And I know that you're putting in the hard work. So thank you for that too.
Yeah, it's a good crowd.
So do
Okay,
we have questions?
we do have some questions. We have some questions. First, and again, this is a little bit of a comment from Hamza about being proactive.
Mm-hmm.
According to Hamza, being proactive is a type of indicator that shows the importance of CX given by you.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And I think one of the things that happens with customer experience in organizations is that a lot of times it's given a lot of lip service. We talk about it, but we don't actually apply the same business best practices and discipline to it that we do with every other area in the organization. I mean, you would never have a marketing group who's just reactive. You would never have a sales group that's just reactive, because the whole point of those groups is to actually be proactive about developing awareness and gaining those sales. However, it happens in customer experience again and again. And so, as you all have heard me say before, when we talk about the experience commitments, we talk about having the right mindset, strategy, and discipline around customer experience in your organization. And that means being proactive about saying, hey, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do. These are the resources we need. And here's the return we expect. And so we need to speak in business speak a lot more sometimes than we are asked to do. And I think that is really being proactive as well. So I totally agree. Great observation there.
Awesome. And then we have a question from email. Is there a recommended timeline for addressing a bad customer experience?
Is there a recommended timeline for, yeah. I mean, I think first of all, we have to make sure that we are responsive no matter what if somebody reaches out specifically. Sometimes what happens is we get something that we don't really know what to do with, or we get something that is uncomfortable even, and we put it off. We say, "Oh, I'll get to that later," or somebody else will address that, and it gets bounced around. And meanwhile, that customer is waiting, and they are not only waiting, but every, moment or day that we're not addressing their issue, they're feeling forgotten, they're feeling neglected, they're not feeling seen. And so it's really important to at least communicate as soon as we possibly can with a customer who has a specific issue. However, if we're talking more about that kind of macro level of the workaround ideas and things like that, what we want to do is actually really address how to prioritize things. Because when we are in this role, prioritization is a big sticking point. We are often asked to do everything all at once, and we hear from so many different points of input. It's not unusual for us to get that feedback from surveys, and it has a laundry list of things we need to change. And then one of our leaders just happens to have an experience or read a book or something and say, hey, you know what we should do is XYZ. And if we are in that position, what we need to do is justify our prioritization method. We use a prioritization matrix. We have a resource for you all about prioritization, because you want to show, okay, is this feasible? And will it have an impact? And that can actually help you prioritize the improvements that you make to the customer journey. And that will have something to do with the timeline and how fast and easily you can address things. There you go. So thank you, Kia, who's here with us. Download the free CX prioritization guidebook there. So we have resources for you because this is such a big deal, but that can help you actually then create a roadmap and a timeline that makes sense to everybody. And it keeps you in that mode of being proactive. So when they start throwing things at you, you can say, okay, here's the roadmap. Here's how we're addressing things. So tell me, does this matter more than the next thing we're doing? Or how about we revisit this next quarter or whenever you have your kind of check-ins there? Good question.
Awesome. How can we get better customer feedback? what are the best customer feedback questions to ask?
Oof.
Kind of a broad question, but
Yeah.
how can we get better customer feedback? And what are the best customer feedback questions to ask?
Yeah, well, the best ones are really the ones that will help you achieve your goals. And that means that sometimes we treat feedback like, oh my gosh, we should just get everything from every customer all the time. And what happens is it's frustrating for our organization and it's frustrating for the customer. My personal belief is we do not ask anything of the customer unless it will actually drive change. So, if you know, for instance, gosh, our mobile app stinks. We know it stinks and we're working on it, but it's a low priority. We don't have the resources to change it. Then asking every customer who visits your mobile app, does this stink? And they say yes, doesn't really move any needle. It doesn't do anything. So we need to be very thoughtful about the feedback that we capture. The other thing that I like to remind everybody about is that anytime we ask for feedback, that is an act of engagement with the customer. If we just let everybody in our organization ask whatever they want, what happens is marketing says, oh, we're going to send a survey over here about events. And then the delivery service says, we're going to send a survey. And then we're going to send one about pricing. It becomes crazy. And we start interacting with customers in a way that promotes not only survey fatigue, but also actually feeling like, you know what, I don't know why I'm telling you people this because nothing's changing. I'm not seeing it. I'm not getting that feedback loop closed. So I like to think about feedback strategy in a slightly different way than a lot of organizations do, frankly, where I like to look at the customer journey and figure out what are our goals? What do we really want to know? What can we do? And what are we willing to do? So that means before we ask a question, we have a plan so that if we hear something from a customer who says, this is horrible, I hate this, I need to talk to somebody, we already have that plan of how to execute that. We know how to elevate it, we know how to get the right people involved, whatever it is. That plan is proactive. See a theme? So we want to make sure that we're proactive about creating the plan around how do we respond to that feedback. So we want to know our goals for why we're asking for this. We want to put some governance around this. We can't have every team everywhere just have access to our survey tool and be able to send it whenever they want. We need to have some centralization around respecting the customer and their journey. And so what I like to do is take the customer journey and layer in a feedback strategy throughout, meaning that we know exactly what we're asking, exactly why, and exactly what we're doing about it. This is something that is sometimes hard to do because we have leaders who say, just ask them everything all the time. We want to know. We want to know all the things. But it's not realistic. And in my opinion, it's not very respectful to the customer. So we need to really kind of take a stand here and say it's not worth it if we get all this information and we do nothing with it. Or if we hear directly from customers and never close the loop, they never hear from us again. I know that many of us get those constant surveys, right? And I know that I have sometimes resorted to, I've told you this 3 times. I know I'm not going to hear from anybody. I don't know why I'm filling this out. And when that is the attitude, that's not serving anybody. So really think hard about your feedback strategy. Think about it in a proactive way and make sure you understand how to really layer on feedback to your actual customer's journey. And I think we have resources or articles or something, but just go to our learning center and search for feedback and you'll see some things.
Yeah, I'm sure Keo magically bring those over shortly. Another question from Paige. As someone on the front line of sales and hears the pain points firsthand, how can we get leadership to see it's important and to address CX?
Mm-hmm.
Paige personally thinks it affects the company's reputation and financial success.
Yes, 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 and yes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we don't connect customer experience with sales and marketing, then we're really missing huge opportunities to not just serve our customers, but also to deliver more. There is tons of data out there that says that if customer experience is done well, then what happens is it makes sales easier for lots of reasons. You get more referrals, you get more word of mouth, you get better customer stories that help you in the sales process. And by connecting those two teams, what happens is we know exactly what happens when sales overpromises, right? And this happens in certain industries quite a bit because they're never around for the rest of the journey and they don't really see it and they're not included in it. So they say, "Oh yeah, customer, we totally can do that in the time frame that you want." And then by the time it gets further into the journey, the people who are actually doing the work say, "Oh wait, we can't do that. That's not a realistic timeline." And that creates a huge level of disappointment in the customer. It chips away at trust. They're not going to refer customers to us, and customer lifetime value actually goes way up if sales and customer experience efforts are really closely linked. So I would say that the one of the things that you can say is that this makes sales easier across the board. And we have to look at things like retention rate and churn rate. In many organizations, acquisition is king. And so what that means is they make a big deal out of sales numbers and they say, "Hey, look, our sales team is doing great. We're sending them to the Bahamas. Yay." And they get all these high acquisition numbers, but nobody's paying attention to how many of those customers are still a customer in a year, 3 years, 5 years. It is so much harder to get a new customer than it is to retain one. It is so much harder to create a new project with a customer rather than expand the relationship with a customer you already have. And so I don't know why we don't treat this as important as it is, because if we do that, every single person in the organization wins. Now, a good way to think about this is to look at a customer experience success statement, because that success statement can be kind of crafted around how do we want to talk to our sales leader? What is important to them? And that exercise of figuring out what's important to our organization, what are our goals, what's important to our individual leaders, and how do we talk about the efforts around customer experience to reflect those things, that can be super helpful because that gets into business speak again. It talks about the return on investment, talks about what we're trying to do. How do we know if we're successful in a year, 3 years, 5 years? So I think there should be a lot more connection between sales and customer experience folks for all of those reasons. And there we go. We've got another workbook for you. So it's available for you there, the CX success statement. And this is the success statement is one of the pieces that we build in flight school because in all the work that we've done, I have found the clients who really kind of take off are the ones who have these 3 foundational pieces and are willing to set those up the right way. When you have that CX mission statement, it tells you who you are to your customers no matter what. What's the promise that everybody in the organization can get behind? And then we've got the success statement, which is much more time bound. It's about your actual business goals. It's about figuring out how do you report all this and measure your success. And then the CX charter is about, okay, what are the promises we're making internally? What do we know about our goals and how are we going to get there and how do we hold people accountable? So those 3 tools, once you have those in your toolkit, it literally makes everything else easier. That's why I'm so passionate about it. And that's why we're starting flight school with this idea of ground school for the first 3 months, where we walk you through. So at the end of those 3 months, you have those tools available to you. Great question.
Awesome. Awesome. And I know, this is just going to add some nice comments, Jeannie.
Aw,
Maybe make you
that's so
blush.
nice.
Yeah. Talking about some real important things that actually matter a lot. So
That's great to
Nasir,
hear because
yeah,
that's again, that helps us live our mission of empowering you to take on more. So thank you for sharing that.
thank you,
Aw,
Nasir.
and
And
Talar.
yeah,
Aw,
our good friend Talar, Jeannie, the best. Couldn't agree. Very insightful.
thank you.
Um, awesome. We have another question. Uh, are there any key touch points we should examine where employee experience and customer experience meet?
Mm,
So are there key touch points that we should examine where the
mhm.
employee experience and the customer experience meet?
Yes. So there are a couple thoughts around this. One is they all meet, right? Like we can't deliver a customer experience with our employees. And if our employees feel misaligned with what we're doing, then they're not going to stick around. They're not going to feel like their work is meaningful. They're not going to actually drive the business forward. So, one of my favorite things to do is actually an employee journey map that marries up with your customer journey map. That will show you some of those gaps. That will help you see where maybe the employee experience isn't living up to your customer experience mission. Now, your customer experience mission statement is not just about who you are within the organization, the promises that you made, but it also kind of sets the tone for what are we promising to each other in employee experience. So, for example, if we say, you know what, we're going to be super responsive to our customers, that's something we promise to do. If we're not responsive to one another in our organization, if we have a request for an employee and they don't get back to us, or they get back to us whenever and they don't have a sense of urgency about it, then that is that misalignment I'm talking about. We have to make sure that our promises are aligned within the customer experience and the employee experience. And actually, Sean, you didn't know you set me up for this, but in the beginning, when you brought up our core values as a company, being proactive is woven in there quite a bit. And that's because that's something we believe as what we need to deliver for customer experiences. That's also how we want to behave to one another. We want to be proactive about solving problems. We want to be creative about making sure that we find these proactive solutions. So, as you think about your employee journey and your customer journey, look for those gaps. Look for, what are we really doing here? If any of you have heard me speak about the customer journey, oh, there we go. Employee journey map template for you. Thank you, Kia. If you've heard me talk about the journey at all, one of the things that I always talk about is that we spend so much time acquiring customers. We spend so much time wooing them in some cases. In B2B, it can take months or even years. And we build up this wonderful relationship. And then the first invoice we send them, it's all the terrible things that we're going to do to them if they don't pay. And it's like a flip where we have this wonderful value-based relationship. We feel really good. There's a lot of trust. And then the first thing we shift to is all the reasons why we don't trust them. That is a perfect example of what can happen in a journey with that misalignment of building the trust, of values, all those things. Look for places in your employee journey as well, where we need to figure out, yes, there are absolutely legal things, financial things, compliance things that we need to be very aware of and do it by the book. But can we do it by the book and include it in a building of a relationship around trust, around values, around all those things that we say are important? That's what we need to think about. The employee journey map template is super helpful. And then, hey, if any of you have been listening to Experience Action, the podcast that I do, we just received a question on this. So I believe it's the next episode that comes out next week will be about employee experience and customer experience. So it might be a good episode for you to tune into if you haven't already. So, and keep those questions coming. We'd love questions on.
Very, very timely.
There we go.
Amanda in Orlando, would you make, and I tried to add it, recommend Flight School for someone who's looking to transition from an association. So that's great, Amanda. And
I
Amanda,
love it.
in all fairness, Amanda corrected it herself. I just couldn't for the show here. Would
So
you recommend? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just think it's funny because I rail against my autocorrect on my texts all the time.
Right, all the time.
Yeah, and that's part of customer experience. I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. But so I'm glad you
Sometimes it can get
clarified
you-
that, because I was like, wow, I don't know.
Right, sometimes it can get you in trouble. Would you recommend Flight School for someone who is looking to transition from an association and membership base to a pure CX focus?
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, I would. And here's why. Customer experience is such a broad topic, and it's such a diverse industry, and people approach it all sorts of different ways. So our approach isn't going to be the same as everybody's approach. However, what we're doing in Flight School is taking all the years of experience with clients, the ones that we have high, touch relationships. We work with our clients for years in many cases, and we really help them build CX leadership and their CX team to get business results. And what we're doing in Flight School is giving you those foundational pieces to really walk through, guide you through that process, give you lots of resources just like we are here, but they're custom for our Flight School membership. And we are really going to hopefully give you the tools so that wherever you go, you can use these things. You can actually build this again and again and again. And after we get through ground school, we actually walk through all sorts of different topics. We have a whole year of content planned out already. It's guided curriculum, live Q&A with me. So if you get stuck, if you're working on something and you want that, we have that available to you. We're going to have special events. We have some friends we're including. We're also doing some research and data to share with you. So it's really a place that I hope is this really safe place for leaders at any sort of level, any sort of industry to say, okay, let's do this right. And that's really the guidance that we're trying to give throughout flight school. So I would welcome you warmly. So I hope you fill out the application. It's due today. So hopefully it's not too much of a burden. It's pretty easy. So go ahead and fill out that application. And then we have our first event next week.
Yeah, exciting.
It
Exciting.
is.
Jeannie, that is all of our questions that we have
Great.
queued up.
Great. Well, Sean, it's always fun to have you here. And it's always fun to see where you're joining us from.
Right. And that's part of the fun is being Sean. All right.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you to everybody for these great questions and for really just being here with us. As a reminder, we've got flight school today. Feel free to check that out. If you're not ready yet, let us know because there's a waiting list for the next round as well. But for now, if you have these questions for me, Experience Action is like an old time call in radio show. We answer one question a week on this podcast. They're short, bite sized episodes. And if you have been listening, I'm going to put the call out now. If you have been listening and want to leave a review, that helps other people find us. So thank you for that. But you can leave me a voicemail at speakpipe.com/experience action. You can do this with your name and to let us know who you are so we can reach out and let you know when your episode is up. Or you can do it anonymously. A lot of folks do that. We just answer the questions as we get them. So please feel free to check that out. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Isn't that what all the pros say? Okay. So remember, being proactive is a state of mind. It's something that we do because we want to lead. We want to make sure that we're making that impact. We're not just reacting to what people are kind of throwing at us, thinking that that's what customer experience is. You being here today is helping us live this mission to create fewer ruined days for customers. We love seeing you here. Our next LinkedIn Live is going to be scheduled for August 18th. So please mark that in your calendars and join us for flight school. Take that compass assessment, leave us voicemails, and we will really, continue on this journey with you together. So thank you so much for being here. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.